And we're live, episode 10 of Coffee with the Johns.
Where's the sound effects?
It's in there. I muted the TV, but it's in there.
I want to hear it.
Okay, there.
There we go.
There you go.
My favorite sound.
And we're joined by a studio audience. See? Studio audience.
There we go.
Very famous and very legit now. So, episode 10. Man, we got a lot going on today. Last week, if you joined us.
Somebody says no audio.
Huh?
Tommy said no audio. It just went live, said no audio.
No audio, Tommy. Do you have your audio turned on? Anybody else can verify that we got audio?
We got a 20-second delay, so we just have to sit here and wait.
Howdy.
My bad, good. All right, we're good.
Yeah. So, see, now I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Now you got me all distracted. But we're going to be covering a lot of real estate. There's a lot going on with millennials, lumber prices, interest rates. There's a article that was very interesting. Possibly, they were saying that interest rates may go up in 2021. So we're going to be covering that. GDP has been going up. Unemployment is getting better. A lot of things. We have some Lyft and Uber news from California. We're going to talk about the movie industry. I mean, the coming Civil War that might be happening.
Coming Civil War.
So it's going to be an interesting
morning.
For sure. So
topics for days.
People, feel free to jump in. We really enjoy when you guys join the conversation, ask questions, put your 2 cents in everything, because even though it's Coffee with the Johns, we like to hear your feedback. So
we gotta talk about our new logo up here that we got from Can Opener Labs. I mean, what do you guys think of it? Actually, something that the brainchild of John Barbera over here thought of and put on the wall, and we had some friends over at Can Opener Labs actually use custom wood. Old school wood slats that they glued together, then laser cut for our letters, and then put that template on there. So
So I don't know what just happened with the screen, but let me see if I can fix this real quick, people. No, the whole screen just came off.
Just went tiny.
Yeah. Hey, little guy. For whatever reason.
John has a problem with tech every now and then.
Every now and then. But
so I can just talk this whole time?
Yeah. People like to sort of hear you talk occasionally. Right? Oh. John is an interesting person to hear every now and then. Alrighty then. Well, we're back.
Right, so fixed?
Yes.
Okay.
So like John was saying, we got this made from reclaimed wood. These old style pallets that were done by Can Opener Labs. So they cut them down, they laser cut them, as you can see. They mushed them together, and I mean, it was a real process. They did an excellent job. We really love it. We wanted to do something, we weren't sure what, and this is what came out. And
actually, it's like exactly what I thought it was going to look like. I was like, sweet.
So you can still see some of the grain and all that. So we're very happy with it. So I hope you guys like it as well. With that being said, let's jump in. And this article right here that I wanted to cover is about the lumber prices. So lumber prices continue to rise, and it's pricing homeowners and builders out of the market. This has been something that we've seen ourselves, and it's really affecting, it's been affecting us. It's been affecting a lot of builders, and we're seeing, lumber prices increased 14% in August. That's a huge increase. And even though that's overall build costs, I believe that they were talking about, but we were seeing increases. There it is. So a sheet is going from $7.50 to $26 a sheet.
That was the biggest thing we noticed that our contractor started reading to us, saying to us that OSB. It's what you put on the decking to walk on. It's what you wrap your house in underneath your siding. So you have a lot of this stuff. in your housing, and to go from $7.50 to $26 a sheet. I mean, that is just an astronomical increase. I mean, you're almost looking at a 4x increase on that price alone. Yeah. So when I'm reading this article, there one of the chairmen of his name is Randy Knoll of NAHB, not sure what it stands for, but he was saying that a custom home builder was quoted a lumber package for $28,000, which is twice as much as it was in February of 2019. So just less than a year ago, that prices have doubled in the lumber price for a package for a whole house, to where this is causing problems where they say in this article that it's causing builders to go back to their clients and just saying like, hey, sorry, we can't build your house. We have to pull out of the contract. Here's your deposit back. We're done, because they already have loans locked in for these prices, and they can't afford to build the houses because the cost of materials and labor has gone up so much that they're just canceling prices altogether. So it is a big concern. And one of the things that chairman mentioned, or he's a former chairman, that the best immediate term solution would be to remove the tariffs on Canadian lumber, because U.S. companies are not able to keep up with demand to bring in the lumber prices from Canada for the short time period. And he said one of whoever is in charge of that said they could do that pretty easily to help supply the market to keep from prices running too high. I mean, as a builder standpoint, I think it's a good idea in the short term. It's like, yeah, I get nationally why the tariffs are there, but right now it's like you're killing the construction industry and home builder industry for housing when we already have a housing demand, and now you're saying that our prices are up so damn high that we're having to cut production costs
and that's actually been the biggest issue, right? It's precisely that we have a low inventory in housing, and not just even people selling their homes. Like, we just have a low inventory of housing. We had this low inventory before the crisis hit, and we need more houses. We need builders building houses. But when these prices are going so high, low interest rates are helping a little bit by making it more affordable to pay higher prices. But then lumber prices have been going up as well. So it hasn't really been balancing out where it helps out.
And it's like home prices have been rising, but there's that in the article they mentioned it isn't going high enough to offset how appraisals are done, because they go by like sales. Because Tommy just talked about the 3 ways of determining valuation, and that's the cost approach, the sales approach, and the cost replacement, income approach, and sales comp approach, to where if you go by cost approach, it's now starting to outpace the like sales approach. But some appraisers can go either direction, and that's where they're seeing this problem come in, is that they're not able to offset these cost increase in the sales and prices, or the sales prices.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, and we've been talking about we want to get more into the new build space. And we're looking for more infill lots. So if you guys have any infill lots, send them over. But we are looking for more infill lots and everything. But we are taking this into account, because even when ordering the packages, ordering all these things, like, they're not guaranteeing prices.
Yeah, those quotes I think we talked about a couple weeks ago, to where MG here, a big supplier here in town, they were only willing to do 30-day. They were doing 30-day price quotes, but since the price of lumber was increasing so rapidly, they're only giving like 3 days, 5 days price locks on lumber packages. So that's it's a big difference.
Huge. So moving on, we have another very interesting article here that I found not amusing, but fun to read, and this article is about the impact that millennials have been having on the housing market. And there's a lot of interesting numbers, interesting facts in this article, so make sure you guys check it out. And one of the biggest things that really caught my attention was that millennials accounted for 61% of all purchase loans, and their average interest rates fell to 3.25%, right? So that's a record low. And 61%, I mean, that's big, because I remember must have been like about 2 years ago that I was looking at the stats of millennials, and everybody was saying how we're going to have a housing crisis because millennials don't want to buy houses, right? They were saying how millennials want to be flexible. They want to have the space, the options to be able to bounce around, do whatever they need to do. So I kept a close eye on it, and now seeing that there's 61% of the buyers, I'm like, holy crap, that's a very large percentage. And it's, 7 in 10, they did a survey, they say they had the flexibility to work from home. So of that segment, the majority held at least a bachelor's degree and had an annual income of over $100,000. So you have these millennials, they have good income, unless you're living in New York and California. But they have good income. They want to be working from home. They want the space. They're starting to move outside of the urban cities because they want the room. They want because of all COVID and everything that's been happening, they don't want to be locked down anymore. They don't want to be in that, near all the bars that are shut down. That was that urban, thing that everybody wanted, that density downtown. That was what San Antonio was pushing for. When we started our new builds in Dignity in the historic district, for those of you that don't know, it's literally minutes away from the downtown core of San Antonio. And the reason we were building there is because they want density. They want that 24/7 lifestyle. But now with COVID happening, that 24/7 lifestyle shuts down.
It's going away.
So you have that shutdown happen, and you have all these millennials that, now they're like, we don't want to be there. We want to be in the suburbs. We want to be further out.
They want space. They want room to move. It's like if they have a dog or they have a young child or something like that. Because, you have 2 kids. To where, being stuck in an apartment to where, it's like you can't even go outside. Besides, you can go on a walk. But, you can't just say, just go play in the backyard. To where now you have that you need that. People want that. To where, on a dime, things shifted real quick. I don't think we feel it as much in San Antonio as we are one of the major metros of the United States. We're not a dense metro like a lot of these other places, like the LA or Chicago or New York. Yeah. So we do have more space to where we still in our downtown core, home prices are still increasing. So
one thing that's funny here, Molly says, your bar is your house. I completely agree. When everybody, and I'm not going to say who was saying it, but when people were complaining about bars being shut down, I'm like, you're home.
No.
You have cheaper alcohol.
I don't have a pool
table. You don't have to
table.
Drive anywhere.
I don't have a pool table,
Get a pool table. You don't need a dining table. It's just you and Molly, 2 people. What do you need a dining table for?
That's a pool table.
Right, Molly?
A pool table.
Yeah, get it. But again, another part of the article that was actually interesting was because of this additional spending that these people have. Nope, not covering the article. But because of the additional spending that these people had, is they want the extra space for DIY projects, and we saw that when this first shutdown happened and the stimulus went out. We had what was it? Home Depot, Lowe's. It looked like Black Friday there almost every day. That place was packed. You couldn't find fencing posts. You couldn't find 2x4s.
Insane.
It was ridiculous. People were doing everything and anything they could to do DIYs.
Yeah, fencing materials went through the absolute roof. I remember one of our contractors, I asked him how it's going and stuff, and he's like, I'm honestly telling if they want a fence, I was like, honestly, if you can wait 6 months, 12 months, or whenever things slow back down, do it, because I'm going to charge you. I have to charge you way more than I normally would just for the fact that lumber prices are up so high. I thought it was funny in the article they talk about homemade sourdough has replaced the avocado toast as a stereotypical millennial trend for 2020. Hilarious. It's oh my God, the homemade sourdough, because everyone's working from home. Yeah. They're working from home. They're staying home. I know some people that they've barely left their house since March. They only left their house. They had their groceries delivered to their house. They might go get something special at some store that doesn't deliver, and that was it. It's only maybe 5 or 6 times over 6, 7, 8 months. I'm I would go absolutely stir crazy. I have to be outside. I like socializing. Because last night we went to
that's what I was gonna say. We went to finally a meetup, a networking event.
That was outdoors. It wasn't indoors. Everyone was 6 feet apart. We had bubbles around us.
Yeah, we were all 6 feet apart. But seeing the joy in your eyes was just warmed my heart.
Warmed my heart.
But and we were talking with the people that held the meetup. So thank you, Todd and Elizabeth, for inviting us, having us speak at that event. It was a really good time, and we had a blast there. But we were talking to them, and they were saying how they still have people that are afraid to go out, right? And they're like, hey, I would love to attend, but I'm still not comfortable.
And that's where I was like, that's the way I think it should be too. It's like you need it. Like it's a choice. If you are worried, don't go out, but don't stop everybody. That's like everyone was there, knew there was an inherent risk. Like and I said, like I can't remember who I was talking to last night. I said, there's a risk every day when you wake up. There's a risk every time you start your car and get onto highway. There's a risk every time you step onto an airplane that something might happen. Yeah. Same thing with scenario. Yes, the risk might be higher of getting ill, but it's like if you're young, you're healthy, there's a 99.99% chance you are going to be all right. Yeah. So that's where I think it should be, and that's where I like. I'm glad I live here in Texas and not some of these other places. Or like Tennessee. I just saw, France. I just heard this morning, like as of midnight last night, in order to leave your house, you have to have a special paper that indicates why you're leaving your house. You have to be approved to leave your house. All bars, restaurants, everything shut down because they were averaging 200 deaths a day across the entire country of France, and they shut the entire economy down, and you have to have permission to leave your house.
Well, that's been the case in Spain. That's been the case. We still have friends and family that are in Spain, and they were telling us the same thing. In Argentina, I mean, it's in Argentina, I have family that live just outside the city, and they have, depending on your driver's license, is when you can actually go into the city.
Wow.
So, and depending, when, what days, what transactions can be conducted when you're there. I mean, it is just complete, martial law pretty much. Like it's shut down. New York City, I don't know if they still have it. Maybe you can tell me, but if they still have the shutdown that they closed down the city at like 11 p.m. Yeah. So they still have that shutdown. I mean, in this
states having more red zones and stuff like that from higher cases now, and they're starting to shut down more.
And you're good, and you're starting to see where New Jersey came out recently, and they were saying how if you have any plans for Thanksgiving in December and Christmas to travel, cancel them because you're not going anywhere. Nobody's coming. Nobody's moving. Right. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it gets frustrating because all you hear is the cases are rising, cases are rising, cases are rising. It's like, okay, but like the death rate and like the percentages and stuff like that's what I think you should be focused on. But like with all the elections and everything going on, it's all like, oh, the cases, we got record cases. Like, okay, we have record cases. Like, but in relation to record cases, is the death rate increasing at a rapid rate as well at the same pace? Because then I will agree that like, yes, that is a problem. But I do know there are some rises to it, but it's like, is it isolated? What is the data behind it? Not just like the headline behind it. Even if you read the article, they never go into it. So it's very hard to know like what in this environment we live in nowadays, like what is the truth? Because it's very hard to what isn't politically motivated, what isn't influenced, and what is real.
What is the truth is whatever is beneficial to the media in that moment to get the most views and ratings.
Yep.
So and it's sad, right? But it doesn't even have to be the truth anymore. As long as it's going to get the ratings, they'll correct it later, even though they know nobody's going to read the correction.
Eyeballs. That's what they're going after.
Moving forward, we have this article now. This one I found actually kind of amusing. So it's the 5 reasons.
Tommy will like this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts, Tommy, because this one is 5 reasons mortgage rates will rise in 2021. They kind of cover a few. I think this person, David,
you want to read
so it's a guy.
Read the 5 points? And
then that's what I was going to go over. Okay. So you have, I think he was definitely reaching with some of these points that he had. Don't get me wrong. I agree that those are things that could cause it. I just don't think that those things will happen. So, you have number 1, that's the Fed, right? The Federal Reserve is the single biggest buyer of the agency of mortgage-backed securities. So it's pretty much saying that the Fed might be cutting back how much mortgage-backed securities they're going to be buying.
Well, they've already cut back. I mean, they say right there they were buying like 290 billion in March, and they've cut them back down to 100 billion every month. The months following that, to where if you have supply and demand, to where if a massive buyer stops buying, it's going to cause a price deflect, an equilibrium in the supply and demand aspect of it, to where I do agree in that aspect that could cause interest rates to rise if buyers, because that yield has to go somewhere, and like the prices have to drop, which inverse interest rates rise in order to people to take on that risk or to find those new buyers. Because basically, if the federal government not the federal government, the Fed is no longer buying, the private market, private sector, or somebody else has to fill that gap. And if that gap isn't filled, interest rates have to rise to where it finds that new person that wants to come in and buy those securities.
Right. So, and again, like I said, I'm not arguing with his points on how those things can cause interest rates to rise. I'm just more thinking like, is the Fed really going to keep decreasing? I don't think so. If it starts having a negative effect and interest rates start to rise, I think the Fed will up their buying because they can't have interest rates rising if the economy hasn't recovered. That's their only tool right now is low interest rates. They have, and we talked about it last week.
It's pumping money into the market. Yeah. That's exactly what another way of doing that is, like just buying mortgage-backed securities. Like that's how you get liquidity into the market. To where, at some point, that can't be our only tool that we just buy forever. So what's the out? I don't know. I think we have both our opinions on that, but we can move on to.
We have opinions? I don't think so. But Tommy had a great point. He says the real rate of inflation is at a point where treasuries are not worth the risk. I agree. That's why.
Well, that's what's causing interest. Like that's why in the point where interest rates have to rise. We're like it. When you have an agency like the Fed that doesn't care what the risk is, because their job is to support the economy, or somebody when they quit buying has to step in to where like if it's I won't say it's an individual, usually an institution, to where like it's not worth the risk. So what makes it worth the risk? You got to pay a higher return.
Well, so then my point is what Tommy just touched on here, that we've created enough debt to scare most institutional investors away from long-term low yield securities. And that's my thing, right? Like that's what I've been seeing is that you've put so much fear into the market, so much doubt, so much fear of everything going on that even when this week with the Dow, right? Cases started rising. The Dow took 900 points. It dove on one day, like a day or two ago, 600 a few days before that.
Yeah.
It corrects, of course, but like that fear is in the market. So then if the Fed lowers it and interest rates start rising, people are going to get even more scared. They're going to get even more scared and they're going to pull out. And then who the hell is going to buy it at that point? So
it's a very interesting predicament that we've found ourselves in for sure.
So and moving on, he talked about number 2, which is the debt.
So the national debt, which you were just pointing at.
Right. So they were saying like the national debt rising. They're projecting that it's right now at 100% of GDP. And they're projecting that by 2021, it's going to be at 104 to 107 of GDP. And by 2023, it's going to be at nearly 200% of GDP.
You read that the wrong way. 107 of GDP in 2023 and 195% of GDP by 2050. That's a huge jump. I was like, well, let's correct that.
But even then, like, here's another point I disagree with. Because while I agree that our debt to GDP is ridiculous, they keep fudging the numbers.
Well, my point
because it's like, what's GDP anymore? You know what I mean? Like, I think with debt and with GDP, like, we should. I know because I've been following the economy since 2008, and they've been threatening that the U.S. was going to cross 100% of GDP since then. That we were going to be the next Japan. We were going to be well over 100%. And then economists came out and said, even if we are, it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect it. Nobody cares. So then it's like,
well, my thing of it is like, where does anyone else go with cash? Like I say, our debt to GDP is too
Mexico.
high. It's hitting red zones and things like that. But like, yeah, but what other world economy, world currency is in a better position than the United States? Because one, like we at least still have I won't say it's positive anymore. We have zero interest rates, but we're not negative like so many of the other countries and the other banks are. Like Germany's negative, Japan's negative,
England
the EU or the EU is negative. The UK is now saying that the Bank of England is saying, hey, are you guys ready to go for negative interest rates? We talked about that last week. To where what other problem is? I mean, it's a huge problem to where it's like Tommy puts at it, like you just have cash. Like cash is king because Tommy, you're going crazy with the comments. I lost it where you were just talking about. It's like cash is king and T-bills, T-bonds, and savings accounts, saving bonds are no bueno because it's literally buying an instrument from the government. But if it's the equivalent of cash to where you get no yield from it, I'm going to hold cash because I can use that cash immediately to go buy something, go buy an investment when the opportunity presents itself. But if it's a T-bill or it's a bond, I don't have to find somebody to go buy that thing and now move off to and then to get my cash to go buy that investment. So
kind of moving forward with this article a little bit, I'm just going to skip a few points because the only one that I feel that he had a point on is that money grab. I mean, that adverse market fee that these mortgage-backed security companies, these GSEs, are going to be putting in.
Freddie Mac.
Yeah, that 50 basis point. He says that could roughly increase rates 0.125, roughly, right?
Yeah.
And this goes into effect December 1st. As of now, they haven't pushed it again. We could possibly see that get pushed depending on how.
Well, a lot of mortgage companies are already putting it in there too. My parents just completed a refi, and I was calling the mortgage broker, and he was just ducking my calls because he knew what I was calling about.
Yeah.
And because they were getting ready to close, and I told my mom, I was like, hey, make sure they're removing that half-point fee because it doesn't go into effect till December 1st. And their loan origination estimate had increased from when they got quoted from 45 days ago. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell? It's like the half point should be gone. But it got down to the point to where when you run the numbers, it's only $4 extra a month. And it's like, after this whole process, is it really worth to go start over again? Because now we're at the end of October, almost November. There's a high chance that you might not get it done by December 1st when it's forced on there. For that extra $4, is it worth going the whole process again? And for their scenario, it's like, no, it's not worth it. So let's just go ahead and complete the refi. But a lot of these banks are already putting that stuff in there.
Yeah,
to where they need to build that into their systems and everything.
And that's what it is, right? Like that's what they don't understand. Like they say, we're going to do this and for the banks and all this. It's like all these expenses are always passed down to the consumer. Always, 100% of the time, because the banks are not going to take the hit.
What was that article? We thought that we were going to put that fee in there. We thought the banks and lenders were just going to eat that fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the same with UK when they talked about doing negative interest rates, and they're like, some of the banks might get hurt a little bit. And I'm like, no, the banks are not going to get hurt. They're going to pass that off to us because it's just what it is. And that's what people don't understand. When you hurt the rich, when you hurt the banks, when you hurt them,
when you tax the rich,
yeah, it's like you hurt us.
All of
that
stuff
because they're gonna pass that on. It's the same with lumber prices going too high, and if interest rates starts rising, it's gonna start pricing people out of the market because now home prices are gonna start falling. It's gonna be harder for people to qualify for them.
Yep.
It's gonna make it harder for home ownership. It's gonna create an issue, and in a market where they seem to use home ownership as a gauge of prosperity in the country. So if that's the gauge you're going by, they're going to hurt the prosperity in the market. And the whole point with the whole article that you and I were talking about is what type of effect interest rates have. So what I'm more curious about is, let's say, calling the loans due and all this. You're getting all these 30-year loans at such low interest rates. And then let's say the interest rates, for whatever reason, start like just going up like crazy. Will banks start doing something to adjust those interest rates as far as, let's say you buy property subject to, right? That we do a lot of creative real estate. Would that start triggering more due on sale clauses? Because,
I bet it would.
Now the banks are going to be paying attention to who has these low interest rate loans.
Yeah, so I mean, if they're lending money at 3% and then somebody substitute it and all of a sudden realize like, hey, I can get 5%. It's like, I want that money back, and there's a clear violation here that I can get. But that doesn't work in the sense that if interest rates rise too fast and home prices come down too far, it's like, ooh, man, if the market starts slumping, it's like, well, I better keep that because if I force that sale, I might not even be able to lend that stuff out. But I mean, it's a hypothetical and a very complex system to like where it might go. Who knows?
It is, but it's what we always talk about as far as, understanding the trends and understanding how things move. Yep. Because as investors and creative real estate investors, and we love subject twos, we like investing. You got to be cautious. We always say the same thing. Subject to is not for your beginning investor. There's a lot of risk in a subject to. You got to understand what it is. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. You need to understand the risk involved with the subject to. That being said, it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
If interest rates, for whatever reason, start going up, and usually when that's going to happen is if all of a sudden we hit like massive inflation. If we hit massive inflation, they're going to have to raise it.
I think it's a very low risk that's going to happen right now. And I mean, the last point that they put in here, and this is one I do agree with, that if it did happen, would increase rates, is if the GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, left government conservatorship. And basically what that means is these loans are no longer federally backed because the companies that are backing them are not backed by the government anymore. To where that risk would need to be priced in to where it's the same thing, to where if you have the Fed not buying as much money anymore, then you have the companies that are originating and say they're backing these mortgages aren't even protected by the government anymore. I think you would have a portion where, yes, the overall interest rates, the overnight rate, and a lot of other rates would not change, but I could see mortgage interest rates rising based on that, even though interest rates are saying, well, interest rates are supposed to stay low for 2023. Yeah, but there's a lot of other things that play into that number that I think could drive up interest rates on mortgages. And where some of this stuff does come to fruition, I can see the case where I think some of the cases are kind of weak of what would cause that, as far as the conservatorship, the debt, the GSE capital rule.
Well, what I like the most about this article is what you and I have been talking about for quite some time with as far as the news and everything goes, is it's good to have opposite opinions. It's good to see the opposite side of things. Don't just look for information and data that validates your opinion. Look for contradictions. Look for things that oppose you, just to make sure that your opinion is actually solid and doesn't have a lot of cracks in it, that it's like, well, maybe you should reconsider this. Maybe you should do more research into it. And that's what I liked about the articles, because as soon as I see something that's contrarian to what we believe or we think, I'm in it. I'm 100 because I want to know, like, am I wrong? What am I not seeing?
We always talk about. It's like you have to read. I mean, there's three sides to every coin: the heads, tails, and the edge. Like you can't just read the head side and not read the tail side. To kind of where's the right opinion? It's that kind of edge to be understanding both sides and not put all your chips on the table saying this is what's going to happen. Because don't speak in definites, because anything can change. Like nobody saw this COVID thing coming. Everyone, for all projections, we saw 2021 was going to be a gangbuster year. Yeah. Nope. Killed a lot of people. Or a lot of businesses, a lot of economy. I mean, some of the stuff we're going to talk about as far as how far the economy crashed and has recovered since then.
Well, so leading to that, we have this article that we were checking out. Of course, you got to do a pop-up now. The U.S. GDP booms at 33.1% rate in quarter three, better than expected. So I know this is, down your alley of what you were saying. You're like, this is going to get better. I believe in Santa. So take it away, man. What do you like about this?
So it's just something to where, yes, we all know the economy just absolutely tanked. I think it was like 30% that it crashed, but the GDP did accelerate to 33.1% in the third quarter, and it was better than the 32% that was the estimate. And my point to that was that that is great news, because you think about it, if we crashed, say I just used the analogy earlier when we were talking that it needed more to get back to where we were at as far as a recovery. Right. But if you use the basis of, say the economy was at a basis of 100 and it drops 30%. We're down at 70% of where we used to be. But then we recover additional 30%. Well, 30% of 70 is 21. 70 plus 21 puts us at 91% of where we were pre-COVID. So we're within 9 points of where we were as far as GDP goes from where we actually started. So that's great news, and a lot of it is attributed to all the stimulus and the government spending that happened in the third quarter, because the third quarter is when all of that unemployment came along with it, and all of the CARES Act, all of that money came in to still help float businesses. Mm-hmm. But now you have this gridlock, and a lot of people are saying that, hey, this is really going to taper off. I was like, well, and that's where I think a lot of these the senators are looking at, we don't want to spend another $2 trillion in the economy, because they don't think it needs it. It's like if you saw a 30% recovery, puts us within less than 10% of where we were in March with spending $3 trillion. Why do we need to spend another $2 trillion to get us over that point with these massive unemployment benefits, all this money being pumped in the economy? Yeah. We don't need it when we're already blowing the budget by, I think it's $3 or $4 trillion of the government deficit for 2020. Mm-hmm. So that is absolutely insane. But what I thought was interesting as well, what thing that attributed to this was a surge in business and residential investment among the stronger consumer activity helped the economy after its worst ever quarter two. worst ever quarter two. Personal consumption increased by 40.7%, while gross private domestic investment surged 83%, amid a 59.3% increase of the residential on the residential side.
Yeah.
But something to keep a look at is that absent new stimulus and with COVID infection spreading rapidly, we're sticking to our 4% forecast for a Q4 growth through the margin of error here is at a large at this point, to where they say like, hey, there's so many things that can happen that they're saying, yeah, we're only going to say Q4 is going to grow 4%, but it could be 10%, it could be less because there's especially Q4 holding an election period. So
no, it's a tricky. It's, and it's the thing that you and I have discussed time and time again about the whole recovery in Q4 and Q3. It's dependent on how the stimulus packages are going to be done, right? Because they're still teeter-tottering between opening, not opening the economy. The vaccine, I mean, who the hell knows when a vaccine is going to come out? And even when it does come out,
the distribution of it.
But even when it does come out, we don't know how many people are actually going to take it, because last we heard was like 40% of the people said they might take it, right? So that's a very low percentage. So you have all these things happening. You have, I think, something that, personal opinion, guys, all right? Don't crucify me for this, but I think Trump has failed I think Trump has failed, in my opinion, because hasn't committed to shit, right? He hasn't done the conservative route, the Republican way, which probably should have been you lock down the economy for the first couple months, let the hospitals get ready, get all the stuff ready, do everything, understand the virus a little, which by then they already had a lot of data on the virus. So understand all that, and then reopen the full economy and just only take care of the people that are at risk, those elderly people and people with a pre-existing condition. Everybody else, get your ass back to work. Yes, you're going to get sick, and guess what? You're going to survive, because it's a survival rate of like 99%. It's insane. You're going to get sick. It's going to suck. You might not be able to taste food for a while, and then you move on.
It's a cold. For most people, younger people, it's no different than you just got a common cold.
But he didn't do that, right? And then the other side would have been stimulus for everybody, right? $600 a week. Nobody goes back to work. Everybody stays home. Free money for the whole world. He didn't do that either, right? Because he did that first stimulus, and then the next one never happened. So it's like you didn't do one side and you didn't do the other side. So now it's like we're stuck in the middle of a half-opened economy, which now other states are threatening to shut down again, and no stimulus for other people. So, and it's like,
well, that's what
it's the worst of both sides.
It was an absolute perfect storm because there was an election. Yeah, like
how dare you have an opinion?
How dare you have an opinion?
I know people tell me, John, don't have opinions, but can't help
it. That's where it's like, because it was an election year, it's like you had both sides that, like, one side wanted to destroy the other side, where you have these economies that are completely shut down, locked down. You have fear-mongering news media outlets and everything like that that are making this so much more than it is, because there's an alternative motive behind it, to where Trump had, because it was an election, he had to help some of these people, because the older people typically lean more conservative as they get older. So it's like you couldn't just open it up. So he had to play some politics in there, to where it's like,
I get you got to play politics. Don't get me wrong. I understand how the game is played. I get that, politicians, speak out of both holes. And it's just, no, wait.
Just move past it.
Move past that.
I don't know where you're going with that, but usually it means you're going to say something like just next thought.
Okay, fine. I'll mark Molly's words over here, safe space. Okay, I'll be quiet. But I think you still got to commit, right? Yeah. So that's where I think Biden gets the credit, that they're committing to their side. They're talking about free everything, more money, more stimulus. Don't worry about it. You're going to be taken care of. Do I believe that's the wrong route? 1,000%. Because like we were talking about yesterday as we were heading to the meetup, it's that, okay, so you provide more stimulus, you provide more money, you stimulate you don't stimulate the economy, you just give money to people. But at some point, the economy needs to get up and running again.
Well, that's what I said. Like, you have to provide some form of value, and just giving money to people to stay home and not do anything with it. Like,
when the majority were doing that because they were like, I'm making way too much money. Why the hell would I go to work?
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. Like, is all you're doing is you're destroying value and replacing it with something that doesn't provide value. And over the long term, that is not a proper solution to where there has to be some exchange of goods besides just, I get money and I give it to you and you just give it. Like, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So it just kind of stays in that kind of death spiral.
Ian Bertini, what's up, sir? Sharpest man in the business space. He puts on there, I think it's very easy to see in hindsight, looking back, we can see what errors we made in the moment. It's much harder to determine what actually needs to be done. I completely agree. We're Monday quarterbacking this, right? I'm just saying that doing the Monday quarterback, I think that's where we hit an issue. He didn't pick one side or the other, and just looking at where the economy is, looking at where we're heading, it's difficult to understand, like, then what is the answer? What are you trying to go for? Because you're not opening the full economy, and yet you're not providing all the stimulus that people need.
And that's where my concern was.
So then it's like, where are we going with this?
Well, that was my concern when we talked about it. It's like, when you get into this gridlock situation where some people aren't opening and they need money, other places are opening, they don't need money, and that just creates this massive gridlock. And then you add this election thing in here to where each side is saying, oh, we're trying to work with the other side, and this one comes up a little bit, this side doesn't come down. It's like, it was a pure politics currently, and that's what I hate so much about it. Is like, there's 340 million people in the in the United States, to where, like, you're holding all of us hostage because you guys are just trying to win an election to gain power. And that's like, there are real people that are hurting, and it's like, they're not getting what they need because you've created this environment to where Texas open for business. Bars are opening back up, and like, traffic is coming back at an exponential rate, which I know I don't like, but on the other side of it, I do, because it shows economy's moving again. Mm-hmm. And our unemployment rate is far less than the national average. I think I did the market update that comes out on Sunday. Like, San Antonio is at 6.6% in unemployment. The national average is at 7.9. Yeah. It's like, that's not a coincidence. It's the fact that our economy is open. And I'm sure if you went to, say, as a California, their unemployment's probably higher than the national average because they refuse to open. So you have this environment where you have both sides that they've created it, and it sucks, and it hurts a lot of people.
Well, yeah, and kind of picking up on that, we have this next article that we were reading on U.S. weekly jobless claims total 751 versus the 778,000 that were expected.
Okay, let's get those numbers right.
751,000
jobless claims versus the
obviously it's going to be thousands. Like, it's not going to be 751 people. Come on, read between the lines, people. But so, jobless claim, right? Like,
it's a low. It is good news. It's the lowest it's been since everything spiked back up in mid-March, I think it was. So that's good that jobless claims are coming back. The GDP growth is coming back. The unemployment rate is dropping, but I'm now worried that, like, a lot of this stuff is backdated. Yeah. That doesn't take into account, like, what's now and looking into the future. And what I sit here and look into the future, what's going on based on how the last couple weeks have gone, it's just like, man, this could get really tough. But I do have faith in the American people's ability to look past that stuff and continue to work. Because that's where, if you look at the news the past, like, 6 months, it's been pretty doom and gloom. But yet these numbers show that the economy is recovering and people are getting back to work. They are figuring out ways to live their lives and move past this.
So you can see it right here, what I'm looking at on this webpage. This webpage is shadowstats.com. It's shadow government statistics. This, take it for what you want. But this person has been putting out this data of what real unemployment is, real inflation is, not what they use for adjusted information, based on people that have dropped out of the market, people that are underemployed. And, again, take it for what you want. But, like, according to this, they're saying unemployment is actually at 26.9%. Because even though this shows, all these articles, they show, like, kind of what unemployment is at the moment and how low it is and all of this, they kind of paint a rosier picture than might actually be, because when you see how many people are needing stimulus, how many people are needing help, then they tell you, well, no, but look at where unemployment is. To me, I'm like, all right, the math here is not adding up. Like, if you're telling me we have this low unemployment, but yet this amount of people need help, like, what's going on, right? And it's a lot of people that are just no longer filing for unemployment, or people that don't qualify for it, or people that are severely underemployed, right? That they have jobs that couldn't sustain the bills. They got to go live with somebody else, so they got to have 2 or 3 jobs. I mean, to me, that's still a problem. Yeah. You understand? There's still an issue because people are not generating the income. People are not having the jobs that generates the income. So when they try to push these numbers, why I have an issue with them is I look at the market. I look at people, not the numbers. And when I look at people and I hear people saying all this, and I'm like, something doesn't add up here.
Well, I mean, where's the truth? It's somewhere in between. It's like I don't agree at 26.9% unemployment. I'm like, a quarter of the people unemployed. It's like, well, here when we're moving around, it's like I don't see rampant homelessness of people not employed. They were like, if
go
you're
to California.
Yeah, you look at, say we have 2 million people. Yeah. It's like you're saying 500,000 people are unemployed. It's like, I don't see 500,000 people being unemployed because I
go to California.
I'm saying here in Texas. Come on, man. But something that Tommy put on here that I really liked is that 340 million of us. We should always focus on what we can do, vice what the government does. We shall succeed despite the government, not because of it. And I was like, I like that. So we're going to survive not because of the government. It's because we're going to survive because we are who we are and we need to live our lives. And we do have some grit. We do have some fight left in it. And that's one thing through this that
1,000%.
I do like, that it's like, hey, the American people won't just bend over and say, you can shut me down and you can take our entire country and we can't leave our house without permission from the government. Because I think I hope we never get to that point, because I don't think they would try to do that, because I know there's parts of this country that would absolutely rise up and just say, no, enough is enough and we're done. So,
well, I mean, and that's honestly above all the crap I always give you about it, but that's really the reason why I moved to Texas, because I always felt that if shit was to hit the fan, I want to be in the state that could just give the middle finger to everybody and be like, we're out. See ya. We're running our own shit. And that's really why I moved here, why I love this state in that regard, because the weather sucks. But beyond the weather, it's still, for now, a free state, right? Yep. And it's still full of people that, when push comes to shove, and we've seen it, right? We saw with the polls. I mean, Texas already had, what was the percentage of people that showed up already?
90% of early voting. Early voting. Yeah. 90% we've hit 90% of our total votes from 2016 in early voting. Like, I don't know what it's up to now, but just like far surpassed the number of people that early voted in 2016. Yeah. So...
And that's exciting. I mean, it's exciting to see because hopefully, right? Hopefully it's exciting.
Hopefully exciting.
But it just shows like people are taking it serious. People are going out to vote. People are showing up. And they have very strong opinions, and people are, and I think that's what's necessary, because let's say the wrong decision gets made this election, right? I'm not saying what that decision is, but let's say...
Well, for half the country, it's going to be the wrong decision. So,
well, let's say, right, the wrong decision gets made in whichever direction. With the amount of people that are participating and getting involved, what I think is that when that wrong decision gets made, they're going to understand it better. And what I'm hoping for, if that wrong decision gets made, that the next elections become better, that the next politicians become
the next
better.
Round of this hostility between both sides in our entire country, to where like people are talking about, like, I mean, there's a lot of concern in some of the articles we're going to talk about next that it's like they're almost preparing for civil war. They're like, we're just going to take some of these powder kegs off the table for a little bit, just as an insurance policy in case things go south.
Well, before we get to that, like, kind of picking up on keeping going with the unemployment and all here, about the bar situation in Bexar County, right? So you have a lot of bar owners that been shut down, and they're going out of business. And the Judge Wolf, Nelson Wolf, the
Wolf or Wolf, what is it?
Wolf. What did I say?
Wolf.
I was barking at him because I think he's a douchebag. But this judge that is unilaterally destroying Bexar County said that 425 bars out of the nearly 3,000 in the county have remained closed, but only 25 will reopen. So that's I didn't know that many bars were even open when only 425 have remained closed. But you have bar owners that they're like, I'm still out of business because they reopen. They're reopening at 50% with a bunch of limitations, a bunch of issues. They're like, it's not enough. Yeah. It's not enough to get this going. And kind of like, leading to those topics is that when you start taking people's livelihoods, and for a lot of these restaurant owners, bar owners, that was all they had. Mm-hmm. And when you start taking that away and you start not providing them help, I mean, how much was it? He said on here that they had put out, man, I think they put that in words and not numbers, so you would read over it. But it was like, what, $4 million or something?
Oh, no, it's right there at the venue. Bexar County Commission approved a $4 million grant program on Tuesday aimed specifically at the area's hit hard bar and restaurant industry.
$4 million. Wow.
I was like, to an individual, yeah, that's a lot of money. But when you spread that across not only alone 3,000 bars, then you add all of the restaurants on top of that, and I'm sure there's probably 2 to 3 times the number of that. Like, what's that, like $5,000 per bar, $10,000 per bar? It's like, okay, you covered my overhead for 1 month, 2 months. Like, that's not enough. So
yeah, and then it's also you have this guy was saying that the guy that's not happy about what they're doing with the bars, he's had to close down, and 25 people have lost their jobs. Right, so you have bartenders, waiters, DJs. All these people have lost their job, and when you look at it across 425 bars, you know what I mean? Like, that's a lot of people that are going to be going jobless. Because if they don't get help, like, even they're opening up, but, people are not flooding to the bars, and then that little bit of unemployment, that little bit of insecurity, that's something that I even told my wife this past week that we need to make sure that we go grocery shopping and get everything this week because next week is election. Hopefully we can still do a coffee with the Johns next week. But next week is elections, and people are going to start flooding the market, the supermarkets and all of that. It's going to get crazy. So you have a lot of people on edge. You have a lot of people, very stressed out, very upset with how everything is going, and more unemployment, more people going after minimum wage jobs because that's pretty much all they can get. I mean, you have people that were qualified in a particular industry, but that's their skills. That's all their skills were at the time. So it's like we've talked about before, pilots. I remember in 2008, most pilots were working at Home Depot stocking shelves. Right?
Because their skills aren't transferable.
Exactly.
Like, you fly planes. Like, what other industry does flying a plane give value to a company? And then it's also that we talked about where that the pilot, like, even if they have management experience, what company is going to hire a manager from a different industry when they know it takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months to turn a profit from that person because of the training, because of what their salary is to provide value to the company, when in 2 years they might just leave, or in a year they go back to their industry that they were a part of. So they just like, well, we're just not going to hire that. We're going to look for somebody that might be here long term because they're looking to make an investment in their business, not investment in the person.
And that was the same issue that happened back in 2008, right? There were a lot of people that lost their jobs, and they had good high-paying jobs. They were good management position or higher. And when they were looking for jobs, they were overqualified for every job because of the same fear. They're like, I got you. I understand that you need a job and we have a job opening, but I don't want to be training somebody that I'm going to lose when everything changes again and when things pick up. So I understand the business owner, but then it sucks for the employee because then it's like, what do we do then? Damn if I do, damn if I don't.
Yep.
I'm screwed either way. And I think, here Molly put it in a very nice way where she says these local businesses, these are local businesses, not chains, They're local, right? Blood, sweat, and tears put into these places. Gone. It's heartbreaking. 100% agree with you. It is very heartbreaking, and that's where I feel that the insecurity and the instability is going to come from, is because of the amount of feelings that you're stomping on through your politics, right? Through all these games that you guys are playing, through all the shit that they're doing.
I mean, you disagree, thinking if you could vote, it'd be illegal. What was it saying? Like, if you can,
if your vote mattered,
if your vote mattered, it would be illegal. It's like, but if you stomp on enough people, I think that can change by their voting power of who these people are in power, to where you can get sick of it and you can come about and be like, we're done. We want a whole new round of people. And I hope it does happen, because I don't like the political situation that this country's in, to where it's like East and West versus everybody in the middle. And like, it's not good, I think, for a country or for a world to have that kind of hostility. So,
well, and then, kind of touching on more things, we have in this article, Uber and Lyft lose appeal against California labor laws, ordered to classify drivers as employees. So this is a big issue. This is really a big issue, because you have now California, they came out with AB5 law at the beginning of January, which pretty much makes every gig job, they have to start classifying those people as employees. That means giving them benefits and doing all these things for them. That, to me, obviously it's California, so of course they're going to do some asinine thing like this. But gig work is for that purpose of just, you jump in when you need it, you jump out when you don't, you can fill in gaps. The whole point of Uber and Lyft, it was not as a job. It was not meant to be something that you have a lifestyle around.
It was a medium. It was to connect a need and a want in between. But now they're taking the want to work, to drive for somebody, and the need, they're saying like, well, no, that's an employee. And the reason it's driving it is because of what they're saying is all of these Uber and Lyft drivers are independent contractors, which were now eligible for all this unemployment benefit from the state. And then they started dragging from all this stuff. But the companies like Uber, Lyft, Instacart, they weren't paying into the Social Security and unemployment insurance benefits and things like that. They were getting out of that. So now it was basically allowing these people to drain from
because
it.
they were doing it for their actual employees.
Yeah.
But it
was a fraction of
what Uber
people.
And Lyft are, they're an app. They're not employing these people. Yeah, they're an app. So it's like I don't know, if we start making money off of Facebook and stuff, like we're saying, start complaining to Mark Zuckerberg that he should pay for unemployment for us, or employee benefits, just because we're using Facebook to make money. Like that's how I relate it. And I think it's asinine. I think it's ridiculous. And what you end up doing is you end up hurting these companies that at one point were here to help you increase your income when you needed it. Now you're making it more political. You're making it an issue, and I think you're going to make it harder for people to jump in.
Well, I agree, and then it's like, to Tommy's point, is like, they can leave. They can abandon California market, just like Ben Shapiro, Joe Rogan, and Tesla have shown they will do. And they've even stated, like, if you enforce this, we will no longer service this area. And I'm curious if that was just a threat to see if they can get some strong arm in there, because it is on the ballot. They overturned it, so it's not going into effect, but that's saying, like, now it's on the ballot that when the California votes, they have the power to make them employees. So they've pumped, I think, like $189 million into marketing, trying to let it out there, say, don't do this, don't vote for this, don't make us do this. And I'm curious, like, when that does change, what direction are they going to go? And if they do hold their true and they're like, you guys, no, we're done. We're not even going to service this market. And you have Uber and Lyft. I don't think they would leave California just because they're tech companies, but I could see them being headquartered there and not even servicing the market where they're headquartered.
Yeah, I mean, what's really going to dictate this is next week they have Proposition 22 that would exempt these gig economy companies from that law. And I mean, I hope it passes, even though I could care less about California. But it's because if you keep screwing up California more and more, they're going to keep coming to Texas. And I don't want them here because they've already screwed up one state. And they're coming here and they're trying to do the same with Texas. They're coming here and they're still trying to, they're trying to push Texas more blue and more, in that way that California was. And it's like, guys, can we admit that this shit doesn't work? Why did you leave?
I know you and I both listened to Matthew McConaughey did a round of interviews.
Yeah.
And he's like,
all right.
But he's put in there, he's like, he talks about Austin because that's where he's from. Yeah. He's like, we're like this blueberry and this sea of red. And he's like, man, we're friendly here. Texas is like, that's our way of living. Like, come on over this way. Like, we can all get along. He's like, but don't turn us into what you left. Like, realize why you left, what got you that situation. We can all get along here. We can have our different views, our different opinions, and be fine. But realize what got you to that point that made you leave the state that you liked and come here. It's like, and that went by the way you guys voted and what the government situation has turned it into out there, and the problems they've had out there.
Well, I mean, finishing that article, they said these companies, Uber, Lyft, Instacart, Postmates, DoorDash, they've spent $189 million to back Proposition 22.
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm surprised I remember that number.
Yeah. But insane. Yeah. That's an insane amount. They're just like, of course. I mean, California is such a big market. Most people that live there, they have gone more towards Lyft, Uber, and all these, platforms because it's just easier to travel. You don't pay car insurance. You're not paying gas.
I think I can't remember what it is. Like the renewal, like here in Texas, it doesn't cost us anything to renew our registration.
Yeah.
Out there, it's like $800, $900 every year just to renew your registration. And it all goes to the government. So we're like, no, screw it. No insurance, no registration, don't even need a driver's license at that point. You just need identification card.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. But this next article I thought was interesting. I wanted to have this conversation and I would love to hear your guys' feedback in the chat as well. CEO emails 10 million customers to tell them to vote for Biden.
And you read the article, like the fear mongering he put into the email about it. It's like he basically put it like, what was his quote? He said, "We are facing an unprecedented attack on the foundation of democracy itself. If you are a U.S. citizen, anything less than a vote for Biden is a vote against democracy." And he's like, "I'm saying a vote for Trump, a vote for a third-party candidate, or simply not voting at all. They are all the same. They all mean I care more about my favorite issues than democracy." It's like, dude. Well, like the world's not going to fall apart if one person gets elected. Like it's not going to explode and start World War III where we're pushing nuke buttons all over the place. Like
so this is the CEO of Expensify. Expensify, for a lot of business owners, we used to use it for some time. It's a software. It's an app where you scan your receipts. You manage your kind of like
expenses.
Bookkeeping. You
manage your expenses.
Right. So it's a good company. But what I'm more curious about is on the business side. I mean, I think the balls to email 10 million customers in the moment that we're in right now and tell them to vote for one person. I mean, that to me is insane. You know what I mean? As a business owner, I would never do that because as a business owner, I think that is damn near suicide because you can lose potentially right now as heated as this thing is.
Well, what's the statistics? It's saying like 42% of people will always vote Republican, 44% will always vote Democratic. Mm-hmm. To where that's like, if you're based, you have 10 million customers, if you use those same numbers, that 4.2 million of your customers are hardcore Republicans and 4.4 are hardcore Democrats. Like you almost alienated half of your customer base. And then to put the fear mongering in there, saying like a vote for Trump or a third party or not voting at all is saying that you're voting against democracy. It's like, dude, I'm an American citizen and I believe in democracy and having a balance of power and it going both ways. But here to speak in a definite that you emailed your entire list, that I think it's an abuse of the privacy that you have as a company of collecting all these emails. And now you're using it for a personal opinion.
It's insane.
For a political gain. And that's where it's like a lot of people were mad that they're saying that's abuse of power, that you collected these emails. And I think I agree that you decided to sign up for that purpose for that company, but you also have the freedom to say, you know what, like there are, well, like, we don't use Expensify anymore. We use Receipt Bank.
Yep.
Like, there are other platforms out there to be
Go
like,
Receipt
you know what?
Bank.
It's like, I'm leaving. I'm out. Or I agree that it's kind of a company suicide to come out there with a statement like that to your entire base.
And then you have this article that I found hilarious. This is a car wash actually by where I used to live and where you live now. Is San Antonio Car Wash doubles as political barometer. So they actually, so you can kind of see it here in the video a little bit. You know, they have a stall that's for Biden, one's for independent, and one's for Trump. So depending on which stall you go into, you know, who you're voting for or who you support, that's where you're going to get your car washed from. What's actually funny is that I've always used the one where Trump is at now because that one has all the brushes. The other ones are just the power of the water. So I was like,
get your back rubbed.
I was like, I wonder if this is on purpose. One actually gets your car clean and the other one just sprays water on you. So, I had fun. I had fun with this. I was like, it's still, I think it's as a business owner, I think this is actually a creative way of marketing because it got them on the news.
Oh, you drive through it and you're like, whoa, hold on. Did they really do that? Like, I'm going to get my car washed just out of fun.
I would love to just be standing there when you have kind of those rushes of people going into the car wash and seeing a bunch of people like, maybe all on one line and then the other one's like
empty.
Oh, screw you, and getting into these debates and all. Because, right there, you're showing who you're supporting, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's seeing it. And this is the stuff that a lot of people are cautious about. So I saw that, and I just first I thought it was great marketing.
I really wish they would post the stats on it. Like, this is the number we've had through it.
They said after elections they're gonna post a tally. Well, so they said this is what I didn't like. I think at election they should post it regardless before the election comes out. What they said is once whoever wins, then they're gonna post it. And I'm like, well, then I think that could be fudged. Yeah. Because if, let's say, Biden wins, then you can say, oh, yeah, look, we had more people go for Biden. But now we don't know, right? Like, post it before the elections. Like
on November 3rd. Like, it's like at the 4th on the morning. Because I highly doubt on, was it Wednesday next week, we're going to know who the president is. I really think this is going to drag out because all of the lawsuits, the ballots were like a lot of them is an article I put on here we're not going to get to. But I think it's somebody, they're allowed to count. Was it 3 days past election, and some of them have until like the 10th to count absentee ballots and mail-in voting. So this is like, oh my goodness, as long as it's postmarked by a certain date, they can continue to count them as they trickle in because the infamous USPS is notorious for just losing mail and it just reappearing 3 weeks later.
You're just so mean.
It's
you and your facts. But here's another thing, another article that was I found very amusing is voters' remorse. Google getting hit with so many "Can I change my vote?" searches Tuesday. It was peaking. Oh my God, that I found very interesting. Like, can I change my vote? First of all, if you're looking to change your vote, that's most likely because you did not do your damn homework before voting and something happened and chances are it's either the media or some famous person came out and said something that all of a sudden swayed your opinion, right? Because you don't have your own opinion, you're using other people's. But the fact that they're getting hit, nearly 16 million people have already casted their ballots and they're getting hit by the highest search engine being, how can I change my vote? Or
can I change my vote? And the crazy thing was, like, you actually can. In some states, you can change your vote. And I think New York is one of them. Where, like, if you show up to the polls and vote, it will null and void your absentee mail-in ballot.
But that was by yesterday, I believe? By October 29th?
No, there's two different ones. There's another state that had the 30th. That was, or yesterday, that you could say request another ballot and say your other one's null and void. And then there was another state, and I think it was New York, that you could go to the polls and vote. But I was like, how do you monitor that? If you have millions of ballots coming in, how do you find this one person or however many, 10 or 300, however that show up and vote again? Like, how do you know that person didn't vote twice now?
Well, this is interesting. The other subregions where voters may be wishing they had a mulligan at the polls, according to the trend data throughout Tuesday, are Maine, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida, Florida, I'm surprised, Ohio, Arizona, North Carolina, and Iowa.
All better.
So they're all wishing they had. But my thing, it just goes back to that, what we were just saying, like, damn, like, I think Molly said it perfectly, where they're headline readers, right? Like, these people are just, oh yeah, we got to get out and vote, we got to get out. And then they go, and this is what I was saying, like, even if the wrong person gets elected this year, regardless of what, who you feel is the wrong person, people are more involved, and they're going to realize that, shit, we put the wrong person in here, and they're going to pay attention, and then they're going to start making, I hope, smarter decisions moving forward.
Well, that's the whole political thing, why it swings one way and then it swings back the other way.
Right.
And that's where I say it walks that line to where, like, the perfect is right in the middle that you're never going to have. So it's got to go left, then it's got to go right, then it's got to go left and right to get that our democracy. And that's why it does work, is because it can change. It can flip-flop. Power does go from one way to the other. The only part now is, like, the left and the right ideology is so far apart that it's like, oh God, that's a big difference between the two and what their responses are.
So we wanted to talk about this article because it's something that we've been seeing come up a lot, and we are kind of worried about it. So Walmart pulls guns and ammo from store displays, citing potential civil unrest.
That's that removing the powder keg just in case. Let's just pull this off the shelf.
Right. So, first of all, I went this weekend. I was buying some shotgun shells. And I was talking to the guy there at the ammo stand, and he was telling me, because I asked him, I was like, why don't you guys have handgun ammo? And, man, that guy had some opinions. But he said that they stopped selling, semi-automatic ammo for rifles and handguns after the 2019 shooting that of its stores in El Paso, killed 23 people. They stopped selling all that. And he's like, they went as far as to stop selling the reload. So all the stuff to make your own ammo. I was like, well, that's the thing, man. Like, you need to think about it. Somebody could potentially come into a store, sit down right there on the floor, and build out, a good 10, 15 bullets, and then put them in their gun. And then he just starts laughing. And, kind of making light of the situation. But what I'm more interested in is Walmart is obviously feeling that there's going to be some level of unrest, civil unrest that's coming, right?
There's an inherent risk of it, and that's where I said I think they're taking that powder keg off the table, like, just in case, because Walmarts do get ransacked.
Yeah, but do you think that the fact that Walmart is doing it could lead to civil unrest? Because maybe people are not there, but now the fact that Walmart is kind of saying, okay, let me start protecting my... Kind of like when you start seeing a run on the market, on the supermarkets, you see more people running to it?
I think there could be some of that, but I think ammo is different than... Because there was already a shortage. It's extremely hard to get any ammo anywhere.
At least for a decent price.
Yeah.
$3.80 selling at $55 a box.
I was buying it for $13 like 6 months ago. But... that's where I think I don't think so much. I mean, with the grocery stores, exactly. If they start running out of stock, that makes everyone run like, oh my God, they're actually running out. They're not going to have it. So let's go there and let's hoard everything. To where Walmart pulling just guns and ammo or bullets off of the shelves, it could be just that we're out. Just kind of you go to walk through an academy and it's very slim pickings on what they might have. Like, it's all just high power rifle ammo and shotgun ammo, and it's birdshot, not even buckshot. So. You kind of just add that to it.
What do you use buckshot for? That's what they're trying to prevent.
But I think it's something that's going to add to the civil unrest. I think it's just an insurance policy of when places get looted, it's these massive department stores that happen. As you see online, it's the Targets, the Walmarts, to where they just don't want to add that extra stuff to it. To where it's you know what, let's just hold off and not have it out there. But to me, it's the shotgun does in close range does just as much damage as the handgun does, potentially more. So
we talked about this before, and this is something that we can kind of get into a little deeper now is, the potential civil unrest. I think next week I would say, just be more cautious when you go places and everything, because people are going to really be on edge. The chances that we find out who the president is going to be next week, I think, are very low, unless there's for whatever reason, a landslide. I mean, they've been shocked by the amount of people that have actually showed up to vote versus the people that have done mail-in ballots. They thought it was going to be a much larger number.
That's why they say these polls are like, we don't know if this polling numbers are accurate because people are coming out of the woodworks that polls never took into account that could vote. As like the number of people that are registering to vote, there's like, oh my God, like we just never even thought this type of person would ever register to vote.
What do you mean that the polling could be accurate? What, too many people voting can not make it accurate?
Exactly. Well, it's just saying
really?
like people that just showed up because like they go off of historical data. And like it's 4 years old, 2 to 4 years old of people that are voting. They're trying to get their best projection on where it can go based off historical data and the type of people that voted. Yeah. And then they call those people. But there's people that are coming out of the woodworks that never would have voted in rural areas that just, I mean, they're living their lives. They're not political by any means. And it just kind of goes by the wayside. But now with like technology, like God, you can't go anywhere. You can't sign on to anything without saying, hey, register to vote, register to vote, register to vote, register to vote.
And it's easy to register.
And it is easy to register. And all of that is allowing people to get out and go vote that they never would have thought of. And that's why they're saying the polls cannot be accurate. And
that's scary, though, that the polls cannot be accurate because... Oh, okay, no. So you're talking about the polls of what they project, but not the actual polls.
No, not the actual polls. Not the people
actual
voting.
Okay,
no.
I
I'm just saying, like I
was about to say, what the hell is that? Like, what, too many people show up and the polls crash?
Or they say like Biden's holding double-digit leads across the entire country.
They weren't accurate back in when Trump ran against Hillary.
There you go. I got nervous for a second. I was like, no, but
okay. I have a nickname for her, God forbid. But against the real estate agent. So when he ran against her, like all the polls everywhere had her winning easy. She probably even thought she was going to win easy. And then Trump took states that were always blue. Yeah. I mean, he took everything, right?
He took a lot of the Rust Belt.
Some people say thanks to Russia, whatever your preference is there, but it happened.
Yeah.
So when people say, oh, the polls are, I don't believe that crap. I mean, to me, it's like, oh, well, you have no, look, don't believe it. Get out there, cast your vote, do your thing, because you cannot depend on hoping that people do the right thing, right? Because if it was disappointing for Trump to win, you should have shown up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And now if you don't want Trump to win or you don't want Biden to win, you should show up. I don't know is early voting done by today, Friday?
Yeah, I think today's the last day for early voting in Texas.
In Texas,
it's state specific on what.
If you didn't do early voting, then your next shot is going to be Tuesday. And if you really have an opinion on all this, you should get out there and do it. But that being said, again, I think we are going to have civil unrest. I think, honestly, we're going to have... To an
extent. I don't know if it or what... I mean, obviously, all of us hope that it doesn't go anywhere and it just kind of it was all just hearsay and here talk. But, I mean, God, after Trump won in 2016, you saw some of the coast just go nuts.
It's a different, but think about it this way: we're in a different market now.
Yeah.
With all this pent up anger and hostility and stress that we have already,
especially
from people
because of the coronavirus,
because of COVID,
like you add this on top of it, it's like
you have all this stuff with the COVID, then you have all these bars, restaurant, all these people losing their jobs, losing their business, losing their livelihoods, all of this going on. Yeah. Emotions are so wound up. We saw that last night at the talk that we gave. We actually got kind of heckled by this lady that she was very emotional. She was a Democrat, and she started early on.
She told us she was. It's not that we're speculating.
No. But that's what I'm going at, is that early on in the night, she made that a point, kind of like trying to instigate stuff with other people. And what was funny is that nobody else cared.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, it's fine. You could be a Democrat, Republican, independent. Nobody cares. We're here to network. We're here to care about our business. But she was kind of really worked up. And then she kept trying to catch us.
She kept trying to argue with us, and we just kept going back. And then eventually the crowd started turning against her. And it was like, ooh.
Because
you're not losing us. Like, you're losing the crowd. Like, the people you're sitting next to are getting irritated that the manner that you're carrying yourself at this event when we're trying to talk and just have educate people about real estate and how we see the business from the buy and hold standpoint. And it was a buy and hold meetup. We're talking about buy and holds, and like she just wanted to argue. And it's like, lady, we're not trying to argue with your points. I mean, she just kept pressing at it like, but what have you changed? But what have you specifically changed?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
my God.
Or what was funny is that, like how her landlords or people that she manages have been so severely affected, and she could not accept that we haven't been affected. And I'm like, what the hell do you want me to tell you? We haven't been affected.
Honest.
Like,
we don't lie. We don't.
I'm not saying that people haven't been. It's just we haven't been.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but what have you changed? I'm like, because my people, from X number of years, they've been affected. And then I wanted to say this, but I kind of said it under my breath. It's like, well, maybe they should learn to invest. Because
that's why you hold your opinions to yourself.
And that's why
times.
I gotta be careful. But you guys did give me some beers, and that further gets rid of my filter. But Lorenzo here, he says she was feisty as F. See, filter there.
Yeah.
I didn't say the full word. But yeah, she was. But where I'm going at is that you have those people, and when I'm seeing them all across Facebook, all over the place, where people are just eager to give out their opinions,
well, they just
in an aggressive way.
Some people just want to argue, and like that's where like all these riots, I think, were in like May after the George Floyd
haters gonna
stuff.
hate.
Where like people ran out to the streets, and like in the way social media allows this stuff to spread so quickly that more people got out there, more people showed up, and that's when the riot and looting, because like people were pissed. They're stuck in their houses for 2-3 months at a time. They're out of work. They see the economy being destroyed. They feel it is some people feel like it's extremely unfair and unjust that everything I've worked for, just one person or people can unilaterally come across and say, I get it, but nobody cares. For the sake of the good, we're going to shut you down and just ruin your life so the rest of us can prosper. Yeah. And then if you don't believe in that, it creates a lot of anger. So I do agree that that can add up. I mean, I don't know, because they say Texas is turning more of like a very purple state, and that's where I think a lot of it can have, where you have the two sides that aren't just all right or all left. It's in the middle, to where you can have that actual battle, to where in the coast it's usually people that think the same politically, ideologies are the same, to where they just get out and they're all just mad at anything. But here you have both sides that have it's just as strong.
They're angry, right? Then they watch the news that validates their anger. Then they go on social media platforms that further increases their anger, because they only see the things that they want to see.
Social media wants you on their platform, so it gives you the things that you pay attention to.
Exactly. So you're paying attention to that. It's feeding you more of that. So it keeps increasing your anger even further. You keep hanging out with angrier people, right? And I mean, you're not taking control of your own emotions. You're letting the media, social media, other people control your emotions. So it's getting to a point where it's like, I see the boiling pot. I see it when I go out places, like, because I test it. I kind of try to, poke at people and see how they react. In case you guys haven't noticed, I like poking. But I kind of test it a little bit, like, well, I'll remove my mask a little bit, or I just won't wear it and see what it is. And you can see people, like, the irritation when they see that, or then somebody, and this happened at HEB, I went in, honestly, I was distracted. I was in my own world. I went in, I had no mask on. I didn't even know where the hell my mask was. I went in, nobody said shit. I'm going through. And then this guy is like walking by. He's like, "That a boy, that's what's up. Hey, high five." And I'm like, hi. I was like, wow, you're very optimistic. And I didn't realize what was going on. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, because I didn't have a mask on. And I'm like, wow. Why go to that extreme where you're thinking like I'm revolting or some shit?
Well, and that's what I said. Like a lot of this has turned into a political battle, and to where it's like it's you left or you're right. There's no in between in the middle, and that's where I kind of tell people like the world is not going to come to a screeching halt, and it's just going to be an apocalyptic scenario where everybody just dies all of a sudden. Like the world is going to go on. We have been here in the world. If you look back in history, like we've had times where you have like civil wars, you have ideologies that go, nobody wants to see that, but it has happened, and look where we are.
So what are you saying, that there's a chance of a civil war?
Well, there's always a chance that something could happen.
No. I'm saying, do you think there's a chance?
No, I don't think there's a chance that there's going to be a civil war. I think we're beyond that as a society to go to that level,
to that extreme,
to that extreme, and it's because I don't think it's. as bad as it was back then, and of like when we actually had a civil war here in the United States. I mean, but there's always a chance that it could get and it could be wrong. But I don't think it's gone that far. I think there's going to be some unrest, but with time, I think we're more of a civilized society that's like, hey, it's not going to go that far here in our own country.
And I mean, and that's really the point. Like this whole podcast, this episode that we do, Coffee with the Johns, I understand that a lot of times the news may seem grim, right? It may seem like, damn, you guys have all negative news, but it's not negative news. It's just news.
Yeah.
It's how you interpret it that makes it positive or negative, right? Like when we look at all these things, we look at all these stats, what we're interpreting is, okay, what is that going to mean for us? What is that going to mean for our business? How do we need to pivot? How do we need to protect ourselves, protect our family? You know, it's not good or bad. It's just news. News hasn't been good or bad for years. You know what I mean? Like it's been the same. Like it doesn't matter whether we had a great economy, a terrible economy. You've always had shit news all the time because that's what sells, right? The media doesn't put out great news because nobody cares about when things are going good.
Yeah.
They only care because as animals, right, with this 2 million year old brain that we have, we care about our own survival, our own protection, right? And what does that mean is that we are always looking for danger. We're not looking for the good stuff. You know, the good stuff actually has to come out of you to look for it.
Well, I mean, that's what I said even last night. Like if you just ignored the news, you turned off all social media, and you just kind of not say stuck your head in the sand, but if you just didn't read any of the news headlines, you didn't get on social media and stuff like that, and you went out and interacted, like you realize like life is actually pretty good. Because last night, like there was a lot of people there. They're all smiling, having fun. They're just like, man, it's really good to get out here and see that. Where they're like, the hosts didn't know, like we didn't know if this was going to be you two and us and the kids sitting here talking to each other, but they actually had a really good turnout because there are people, and like most of the people there, besides the one, were actually very happy, very friendly, and we got out and talked. And if you weren't paying attention to the news, you wouldn't know anything was even really going on.
Well, I mean, and one thing that you and I always talk about is that I get my news from you or my wife because I don't watch the news. Aside from when we actually started doing the Coffee with the Johns, episode 10. I mean, if you guys are enjoying this, share it, subscribe to this.
Hit the like button.
We love doing this, and we love providing this value for you guys. So if you guys are Wi-Fi on, there we go. All right, back at it. See, this is what I tell you. We got to be careful with what we say, because then, man, Big Brother is watching, and they start cutting our internet connection. So we weren't saying anything bad about the media. We weren't saying anything bad about anything. Everybody is so good. We love the media. We love Facebook. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah,
trying to defuse the situation, I swear to God.
But well, with that, we'll kind of just start wrapping up. I hope you guys got some value out of this. And the biggest thing is I understand that there's a lot of fear in the market right now, and there's a lot of fear in people. And a lot of times we have a thing that we try to ignore our fear because it's either not manly or it's not, it's whatever. It scares us, right? But you got to acknowledge that you're afraid. You got to understand you're afraid. It's okay to be afraid. You understand? It's okay. It's not okay is that it paralyzes you. So it's all right to be afraid in these times, but get educated. Don't get paralyzed. Don't let this time stop you. You understand? You get around people that are also looking for solutions and not people that spend their time whining and complaining. I cut off everybody that whines and complains all the time because I could care less about that. You understand? I have other priorities in my life. I have other people that matter more. So it's okay to have fear. Understand that you have fear, but don't let it paralyze you. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody for watching. It's been a great episode. We had quite a bit of you. I love the engagement in the chat. Please keep engaging, keep sharing, keep sharing the message, and keep getting educated, guys. Like you really need to educate yourselves. You really need to look at both sides.
My thing is, like I always say, like formulate your own opinion. Don't listen to just one side. Listen to the side that you believe on, but then look for the conflicting side.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do, especially with the show. We try to find like people that disagree, like the gentleman from Expensify. Like, obviously he strongly disagrees. Try to find out, why does he disagree so much? Like, what is the situation, and formulate your own opinion. Don't let somebody else control your opinion in the way you think. There's, like I said, there's a left, there's a right, there's a middle. Find that middle ground and understand both sides and formulate your own opinion and think for yourself.
And I think that's an excellent point to end on. Stand in the middle of the coin. Look on both sides. Don't go on either side. Just stand in the middle, understand it, and think for yourself.
Exactly.
So thank you all for watching.
Have a good week.
Have a great week.
Get out there and vote if you haven't. And
hopefully,
just hunker down. It's going to be okay. The
hopefully we don't have a crazy next week. And we'll see how that turns out. And we will catch you next week for Coffee with the Johns. And yeah, it's going to be another fun episode. So make sure to share it. Let people know about next week. And let's have another lively conversation and good opinions and good turnout. So thank you all for watching. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.